The message arrived on a Tuesday. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the Defiance, watching Earth's blue marble spin lazily below. Coffee steam rose from her mug, carrying the rich aroma that reminded her why humanity had fought so hard to keep their coffee beans when the Galactic Council first made contact 50 years ago. Her peaceful morning shattered when Lieutenant Rodriguez burst through the doors. "Captain!" Rodriguez's voice cracked with urgency. "Priority transmission from Galactic Command. They're ordering us to report to the Council chambers immediately." Sarah's grip tightened on her mug. The last time humanity had been summoned to the Council chambers, they'd been told to know their place in the galactic hierarchy. That was 20 years ago, right after the Proxima incident. "What's the official reason?" Sarah asked, though her gut already knew this wasn't going to be good news. Rodriguez swallowed hard. "They're classifying us as a developing species requiring immediate intervention. Captain, they're talking about placing humanity under direct Council oversight." The coffee mug slipped from Sarah's fingers. It shattered against the deck plating, dark liquid spreading like spilled blood. Through the observation window, Earth continued its ancient dance around the sun, unaware that its children might be about to lose their freedom forever. But Sarah Chen had been in the Battle of Kepler 442. She'd seen what humans could do when their backs were against the wall. The Galactic Council seemed to have forgotten that lesson. Maybe it was time to remind them. The journey to the Galactic Council station took 3 days through hyperspace. Sarah spent most of that time in her quarters, reviewing old mission reports and trying to understand how humanity had gone from respected allies to developing species. In just 2 decades, she pulled up the files from the Proxima incident. Even now, the images made her hands shake. The Zalathi Empire had swept through the Proxima system like a plague, their bioships consuming everything in their path. 3 Council species had fled without firing a shot. Their advanced technology, their superior numbers, their millennia of experience, none of it mattered when faced with the Zalathi swarm, but humanity hadn't run. "Computer, play audio log Proxima 7, Sarah commanded. Her younger voice filled the room, tired but determined. "This is Admiral Chen commanding the 3rd Human Fleet. The Zalathi have broken through the inner defense grid. All Council forces have retreated to minimum safe distance. We are alone out here, but we're not backing down. If Earth falls today, at least we'll make them pay for every inch." What happened next had shocked the galaxy. Humanity didn't just fight. The Zalathi, they won. Not through superior technology or numbers, but through something the other species had lost long ago. The absolute refusal to give up. Human ships rammed Zalathi biocruisers when their weapons ran dry. Human Marines boarded enemy vessels with nothing but plasma rifles and the kind of desperate courage that comes from protecting your home. In 6 hours, the 3rd Human Fleet had done what the combined Council armadas couldn't do in 6 months. They broke the Zalathi Empire. A soft chime interrupted her memories. "Captain?" came Rodriguez's voice over the comm. "We're approaching the Council station. You're going to want to see this." Sarah made her way to the bridge. Through the main view screen, the Council station loomed like a metallic flower in space. Its 5 petals represented the 5 founding species of the Galactic Council. The wise Etherians with their crystalline ships, the proud Draconas with their massive dreadnoughts, the mysterious voidlings whose vessels seemed to bend light around them, the ancient constructors who built worlds, and the diplomatic helix whose spiral ships danced between the others like mediators. Notably absent were any human vessels. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said quietly, "I'm reading massive fleet concentrations around each Council ship. This isn't a diplomatic meeting, this is a show of force." Sarah studied the tactical display. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all pointing toward Earth's small diplomatic vessel. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. But as she looked at those gleaming fleets, Sarah found herself smiling. They were so beautiful, so perfect, so clean. Not a single battle scar among them. "Rodriguez," she said softly, "pull up the service records of every ship out there. I want to know when they last saw actual combat." The answer came back within minutes, and it made Sarah's smile widen. None of them had fired a shot in anger for over 15 years. Not since Proxima. The galaxy had grown soft in its peace. They'd forgotten what war actually looked like. But humanity remembered. The council chambers were exactly as Sarah remembered. A vast circular room with the representatives of each species seated in elevated positions around the perimeter. At the center, a small platform waited for whoever was being judged. As Sarah walked to that platform, her footsteps echoing in the silence, she felt the weight of thousands of eyes upon her. Some looked at her with pity, others with contempt, a few with curiosity. High Etherean Zephyr spoke first, her crystalline form shimmering with contained energy. Captain Chen, we have summoned you here today because humanity has become problematic. Problematic? Sarah kept her voice level, professional. Your species shows disturbing signs of aggression, rumbled Draconis Supreme Thane, his scaled features gleaming in the chamber's light. The incident at Kepler 442, where human colonists drove off hegemony raiders using improvised weapons. The confrontation at Tau Ceti, where human traders refused to pay tribute to the local warlords. Most recently, the affair at Wolf 359, where human miners fought back against claim jumpers. You mean where my people defended themselves? Sarah asked. You mean where they engaged in unauthorized violence, corrected Voidling speaker Null, her voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The galactic community has moved beyond such primitive responses to conflict. Constructor Prime 7742 projected holographic images above the assembly. Analysis indicates human neural patterns remain locked in outdated survival paradigms. Recommendation: immediate species-wide behavioral modification. Sarah felt something cold settle in her stomach. Behavioral modification? Nothing harmful, assured Helix Mediator Spiral Song, her translated voice carrying artificial warmth. Simply neural adjustments to reduce aggressive tendencies, to help humanity take its proper place in galactic society. And what place would that be? Sarah asked, though she suspected she already knew. High Etherean Zephyr's crystals pulsed with satisfaction. A supervised species. Your worlds will be managed by council administrators. Your military will be disbanded. Your technology will be regulated. You will be peaceful. The word peaceful hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah looked around the chamber at the faces of the galaxy's rulers. They truly believed they were being merciful. In their minds, they were saving humanity from itself. They had no idea what they were about to unleash. I see, Sarah said calmly. And if we refuse? Draconis Supreme Thane leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the platform. Captain Chen, look around you. We have assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. Every major species stands united in this decision. You have one small ship and the stubborn pride of a primitive species. What could you possibly do against such overwhelming force? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. You want to know what we could do? She raised her head, and for the first time since entering the chamber, she smiled. We could remind you why you needed us at Proxima. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop 10 degrees. That was different, High Etherean Zephyr said, but her crystals flickered with uncertainty. The Zelathi were an outside threat, a common enemy. Were they? Sarah asked. Or were they just the first species you met who didn't back down when you told them to be peaceful? She turned slowly, addressing the entire assembly. Do any of you remember what it was like before Proxima? When the Zelathi were consuming world, after world, and your response was to retreat to minimum safe distance? When your answer to an existential threat was to negotiate and compromise until there was nothing left to save? The Zelathi were an aberration, Voidling speaker Null insisted. The galaxy has evolved beyond such conflicts. Has it? Sarah's voice began to rise. Then why do you need such a massive fleet to intimidate one species? Why do you need behavioral modification to make us comply? If you've truly evolved beyond conflict, why are you so afraid of us? The silence that followed was deafening. Constructor Prime 7742 was the first to speak. Captain Chen, you will submit to Council authority. This is not a negotiation. Sarah nodded slowly. You're right, it's not. She touched the communicator on her collar. Rodriguez, send the signal. What signal? Demanded Draconis Supreme Thane. Sarah's smile returned, and this time it carried the weight of old promises and forgotten warnings. The one that tells every human in the galaxy that diplomacy has failed. The first sign something had changed came from the communication arrays. Across the galaxy, human colonies, trading posts, research stations, and exploration vessels began transmitting on frequencies the Council had never heard before. The signals were encrypted, chaotic, impossible to decode. But to human ears, they were crystal clear. Admiral Marcus Webb received the signal while his small patrol fleet was escorting a medical supply convoy near the Rigel system. The message was simple. Omega Protocol is active. All human forces are to proceed with Contingency 7. Webb had hoped he'd never hear those words. Contingency 7 had been developed in the darkest days after first contact, when humanity realized just how vast and potentially hostile the galaxy could be. Sir, his communications officer said, voice tight with barely controlled excitement, we're getting responses from human ships across 3 sectors. They're all acknowledging Omega Protocol. Webb nodded grimly. Send word to the convoy, medical supplies are no longer our priority. Within hours, something unprecedented began happening across human space. Ships that had been scattered across dozens of systems began converging. Not just military vessels, but merchant ships, mining platforms, research vessels, even luxury yachts. Every human ship capable of mounting weapons was being retrofitted, rearmed, and redirected toward rally points that existed only in classified military databases. The galaxy watched in confusion as humanity's small, scattered presence began, consolidating into something much more organized and much more dangerous. Back in the council chambers, the representatives were receiving increasingly alarmed reports from their homeworlds. High Etherian, came an urgent transmission. Human, trading vessels in the crystalline nebula have begun moving in formation. Their behavior patterns suggest military organization. Draconis Supreme, another report crackled through. The human mining operation in our outer territories has gone silent. Long-range sensors show their facilities are fortifying. Helix Mediator Spiral Song's harmonious voice wavered with concern. Captain Chen, what are your people doing? Sarah remained standing calmly on the central platform. They're remembering. Remembering what? Demanded Voidling Speaker Null. What it means to be human. Constructor Prime 7742's holographic displays now showed tactical analyses from across the galaxy. The data was troubling. Human vessels are demonstrating coordinated movement patterns. Estimate suggests pre-planned contingency activation. This is unacceptable, Draconis Supreme Thane roared. We will not tolerate this defiance. Then stop it, Sarah said simply. The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. High Etherian Zephyr's crystals pulsed with agitation. Captain Chen, you cannot seriously believe your scattered forces can stand against the combined might of the Galactic Council. Maybe not, Sarah admitted. But here's what I know about humans that you seem to have forgotten. We don't fight because we can win. We fight because we can't live with ourselves if we don't try. She gestured toward the view screen showing the massive council fleet. Your ships are beautiful, advanced, and powerful. Your crews are well-trained and disciplined. But when was the last time any of them had to choose between death and surrender? The Wayne galaxy is civilized now, Helix Mediator Spiral Song insisted. Such choices are unnecessary. Are they? Sarah asked. Because you just gave that exact choice to humanity. Submit to behavioral modification or face extinction. The only difference is we've made our decision. As if summoned by her words, new contacts began appearing on the Council's long-range sensors. Human ships, emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands. Impossible. whispered Constructor Prime 7742. Our intelligence indicated human fleet strength at less than 500 combat-capable vessels. Sarah's smile grew wider. Your intelligence was based on our official military. You forgot about our merchant marine, our exploration fleets, our colonization ships, our research vessels. She paused. Our miners. The last word sent a chill through the chamber. Everyone remembered the reports from Wolf 359, where human miners had held off an entire pirate fleet, using nothing but mining equipment and stubborn determination. You see, Sarah continued, when you told us we were too aggressive, too primitive, too dangerous, you made one critical error. You assumed that was a weakness. The human fleet continued to grow, ships of every size and configuration, from massive colony vessels hastily fitted with weapons to small scout ships that looked like they could barely survive hyperspace travel. But they kept coming. For 20 years, Sarah said, you've treated us like children who needed to be civilized. You've limited our expansion, regulated our technology, and condescended to us at every opportunity. And we accepted it, because we thought peace was worth the price. Draconis Supreme Thane leaned forward menacingly. And now? Sarah's expression grew cold. Now we're reminding you why the Zalathi Empire fell in 6 hours. Epilogue. The price of forgetting, the battle never came. As the human fleet reached optimal engagement range, something unprecedented happened in galactic history. The Council fleet began to disperse, not retreat. That would have been too shameful to acknowledge. They called it strategic repositioning and diplomatic reconsideration, but the result was the same. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the Galactic Council had blinked first. High Etherian Zephyr's crystals had dimmed to barely visible light. Captain Chen, what are your terms? Sarah had been waiting for this question. No behavioral modification, no supervision, no restrictions on human expansion or technology development, and formal recognition of humanity's right to defend itself by any means necessary. Unacceptable, Draconis Supreme Thane snarled. You're demanding the right to destabilize galactic peace. I'm demanding the right to exist as we are, Sarah corrected. If that destabilizes your peace, maybe your peace was built on a foundation of fear, rather than mutual respect. The debate that followed lasted 3 days. During those 3 days, the human fleet held position, neither advancing nor retreating, just waiting. Finally, Constructor Prime 7742 offered the logical conclusion. Proposal: grant human autonomy in exchange for continued cooperation in galactic affairs. Risk assessment indicates forced compliance would result in extended conflict, with unpredictable outcomes. The vote was close, but it passed. Months later, Sarah stood once again on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching Earth turn below. But this time she wasn't alone. Admiral Webb had joined her along with the commanders of a dozen other human vessels. Think they learned their lesson? Webb asked. Sarah considered the question carefully. They learned that we're not the domesticated, pet species they wanted us to be. Whether that's the same thing as learning their lesson, that remains to be seen. The Helix are calling it the Human Reminder, offered Commander Torres from the research vessel Curiosity. Apparently it's become required reading at their diplomatic academy. Good, Sarah said. Maybe the next time someone decides humanity needs to be civilized, they'll remember that civilization isn't about removing the capacity for violence. It's about choosing when that capacity is necessary. She took a sip from her coffee mug, a replacement for the one she'd dropped when this whole crisis began. The coffee was still rich, still warm, still perfectly human. Through the observation window, Earth continued its ancient dance. But now its children flew free among the stars, not as supervised juveniles or domesticated pets, but as equals who had earned their place through strength, determination, and the absolute refusal to surrender what made them human. The galaxy had tried to forget humanity's power. Humanity had politely reminded them, and in the vast darkness between the stars, that reminder echoed like a promise. Touch us at your own risk. We are still here. We are still human. and we still remember. How to fight. The coffee tasted particularly good that day. The end.